About 500 years ago, La Llorona, christened Maria, was an extremely beautiful woman who belonged to a poor family. Her startling beauty captured the attention of both the rich and the poor men of the area. She was said to have spent her days in her humble surroundings, but in the evenings she would don her best white gown and thrill the men who admired her in the local fandangos. It is said that one day while Maria was walking through the village, a rich nobleman saw her and immediately fell in love with her. In no time, the rich noble proposed to Maria, to which she gladly agreed. Once married, the couple built a home near Maria's village, and soon after, as time passed, she gave birth to 2 sons. At first, Maria was happily married and cared for her sons and her husband deeply, and in return the husband would shower her with gifts. However, as time passed, her husband became distant and would not even come home at times. He took to a life of womanizing and alcohol, often leaving her for months at a time. He seemingly no longer cared for the beautiful Maria, even talking about leaving her to marry a woman of his own stature. Then one day, Maria's husband left home for work and never came back. A couple years passed and Maria made a life for herself and her young sons. One evening, as Maria was strolling with her 2 children on a shady pathway near the river, a carriage carting a couple came into view, and once it came near the family, it suddenly stopped. Inside was Maria's husband with a young, beautiful woman sitting at his side. He stopped and spoke to his children but ignored Maria, and then drove the carriage down the road without looking back. Blinded by anger, Maria took her sons and threw them into the river, where they both drowned. As soon as she regained her senses, Maria desperately dove in after the lifeless body of her children and almost drowned trying to pull them out of the river. Maria mourned their deaths day and night. During this time, she would not eat and walked along the river in a white gown, searching for her boys, hoping they would come back to her. She cried endlessly as she roamed the riverbanks, and her gown became soiled and torn. When she continued to refuse to eat, she grew thinner and appeared taller until she looked like a walking skeleton. Still a young woman, she finally died on the banks of the river. Not long after her death, her restless spirit began to appear, walking the banks of the Santa Fe River when darkness fell. Her weeping and wailing became a curse of the night, and people were afraid to go out after dark. She was said to have been seen drifting between the trees along the shoreline or floating on the current with a long white gown spread out upon the waters. On many a dark night, people would see her walking along the riverbank and crying for her children, and so they no longer spoke of her as Maria, but rather La Llorona, the weeping woman. Children are warned not to go out in the dark, for La Llorona might snatch them, throwing them to their deaths in the flowing waters. It is said that at the gates of heaven, La Llorona was challenged over the whereabouts of her children and was not permitted to enter the afterlife until she found them, thus forcing her to wander the earth for all of eternity, searching in vain for her drowned offsprings. She constantly weeps, hence her name is La Llorona, which literally translates into the weeping woman. She is caught between the living world and the spirit world. La Llorona kidnaps wandering children who resemble her missing children, asks them for forgiveness, then kills them to take the place of her own. People who claim to have seen her say that she appears at night or in the late evening by the rivers or lakes. Some believe that those who hear the wails of La Llorona are marked for death, but those who escape in time are not. The Hispanic people believe that the weeping woman will always be with them, following the many rivers looking for her children, and for this reason, many of them fear the dark and pass the legend from generation to generation. The Llorona story has lost some of its fear factor. Instead, it has become more of a warning to young children to stop them from wandering too close to deep water, especially in the dark. But it is La Llorona whose tale has gripped generation after generation of Mexican children. They are warned that if they misbehave, La Llorona will snatch them, or that going out after dark will make her appear. Even today, many adults who grew up with the story say that they believe in La Llorona. But what do you believe? Let me know in the comment section down below.